Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to Warcraft Weekly, the shilliest side of town. Hit the like button, subscribe for more copium-filled content, and let's talk about the 10.0.5 launch. It's the first of two major patches that we expect to see between seasons, or major patches, or tiers, whatever you want to call it. And with it come updates, fixes, and additions that aren't meant exactly to pressure folks already on break to, come back or else, but more like, hey, dude, this is World of Warcraft. It's a persistent world that, grows a little bit each patch. Ain't that right? Selfie patch. How about you in the back there? Voice chat 1.0? Anyway, the patch opened up like most other WoW patches, late, with players jumping at the chance to be first at everything, including completing the 5th and final Spark of Ingenuity quest. The skies over Tierhold were blotted out by players desperate to tag mobs for quest completion, bringing back other fond memories of times when the WoW team overlooked quest bottlenecks. It's a really nostalgic feeling. Although that wasn't really that long ago, right? Dragonflight's only been out for 2 months, so, I did just talk about this whole schedule cadence thing with patches coming out faster, and now we're starting to live it, just like the Legion days. Now compare that to like the Shadowlands days. The first patch of Shadowlands came out 4 months after launch, and what did that have? Come on, really, what did it have?
Valor system?
Valor system, like in the middle of a season. Wow, what a great time to have that. So if nothing else, I've got to give props to the WoW team for coming through with their commitments so far. And now back to the patch. With the completion of the 5th Spark questline, the bottled essence that makes this Spark will now randomly drop at a low rate. I happen to get one like on the same day, so I shouldn't expect to get another one so soon, although it just came out as a very pleasant surprise. Also, a new skip has been made available for alts. They can now skip all the Spark unlock quests, get them 5 Sparks, and the buff that lets them get it at random, and that's great. 5 Sparks for our freshly leveled alts that we can use to immediately go to social media and remind the WoW team that we still need Primal Chaos with those sparks to get crafted gear. I think it's a bit of an oversight. No matter how we feel about whether Primal Chaos should have been account tradable from the start, doesn't matter. Let's just talk about now. Now is a great time for Primal Chaos to be tradable across our alts somehow, some way. It's a little bit of alt friendliness to line up with the other alt friendliness that we just got with the Spark catch-up. I think it sounds fair. I have a bunch of chaos on my main that is not going to be used. Meanwhile, my alts are starving, and getting access to these sparks would have let them have fairly easy access to 5 pieces of like item level 390 gear. It's hardly the same as buying BOE mythics from the auction house. On the other hand, top players who've been running dozens of keys and doing mythic clears of the raid, well, they're sitting on primal infusions to make heroic or even mythic level crafted gear. They're also asking for these infusions to be made account-wide too. Now, whatever the case, I think the WoW team ought to at least address or respond to the feedback at some level, not out of some principle, not because players are banging at the door, but because, well, with the Spark thing, it's already half done. They might as well finish it, because if they don't, then why bother with half the skip anyway? Moving on, since Dragonflight's launch, there's been a steady stream of hotfixes coming in, big and small, to address bugs and pain points, egregious balance issues, dungeon tuning, raid tuning, and more. Tucked into a recent string of hotfixes is this little thing about holiday-themed transmog, which can now be worn year-round without the holiday event needing to be active. So this is a big deal, but it's also not a big deal because, at least in my opinion, it shouldn't have been a thing in the first place. From the looks of it though, there are still a few holiday restricted items around the Love is in the Air, the Brewfest, the Hallows End, and the Winter's Veil holidays. But what we're seeing here, I think, is less of the WoW team caring how it is that we use our collections. If I want my character to wield the holy light and a fish while wearing bunny ears, so be it, whatever. Which is why I'm renewing my call to let players learn all transmog as they collect it no matter the armor type, and remove the armor restrictions. So plate-wearing priests? Sure. Come on, seriously, we can already play as goblins and cows and goat people with tentacles on their faces. Oh, but a plate user shown wearing cloth? No way, that ruins my lore, Blizz. I think that argument doesn't hold up very well these days. However, I do still support class sets, which are, restricted to class. I don't think that's as big of a deal to preserve. Like, those sets are designed to celebrate that class. I think there's something important to be kept there. On the flip side though, many class sets have offset recolors that are not restricted, so I think there's already a compromise there. As for now though, the freeing up of holiday transmog means holidays have a bit more life breathed back into it, and we can expect more updates to holidays throughout 2023. I myself haven't done these holiday events in over 10 years, so it's kind of cool to be back, and in less than 2 weeks, the Love is in the Air event is back as well, so what else can we look forward to? Next week on the 1st of February, the trading post will launch, starting off a monthly rotation of rando stuff to get. I'm going to cover all of that in the Monday video, but here I want to mention an important clarification that fans have been asking about. Will tender that we save up roll over to the next month? And the answer is yes. Unspent tender will roll over and we can continue accruing this tender. There's still the question though of if there's going to be a cap, an upper cap on tender. Like, are we going to eventually be forced to spend it on something to avoid going over this cap? Whatever the case though, knowing that tender will roll over month to month is pretty encouraging because it takes the pressure off of having to spend all of it before it goes away. Instead though, this introduces a different sort of question. Should we hoard our tender? Right now, the most expensive stuff on the trading post goes for a little bit under 1,000 of this tender, which is what we can earn each month. Now imagine future data mining. If we happen to see an appearance or a mount or a pet that doesn't have an obvious source, people are going to consider saving tender out of pure speculation. Someone out there is going to do nothing but save up tender just in case the Brutosaur were to ever appear. If the WoW team were to clarify that items will never exceed what we can earn in a month, that'd be pretty reassuring. And I'm actually against the idea of having high-priced items because that's the game telling players that in a given month, you'll want to limit the rewards that you get because you're trying to save up. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think it's unnecessary for a feature like this, but I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Moving on, not even a day after the 10.05 patch launch, the team laid out their plans for patch 10.0.7 and even started spinning up the PTR, which could be up soon, but not before I finish this recording. And they revealed a few new items beyond what was already known on the roadmap, like the return to the Forbidden Reach, the new heritage armor, and the holiday updates. But first, let's talk about these new human and orc heritage sets, which has fans split between, hey, this is pretty awesome, and hey, this grunt and footman thing is really played out. The WoW team responded to some of the early criticism, saying that there are a couple more variations that players will get, and they'll show more of those a bit later. In my early reactions, I found my excitement to be a little bit tepid because, yeah, we've done the footman versus grunts thing for like the past 20 years now. As these armor sets, they look great, and I'm looking forward to seeing these in motion, using unique class animations and seeing both genders. But I'm also really torn between liking the intent of these sets and being kind of tired of the same old look, just dolled up with more details. The armor themselves, it's an iconic, it's a signature look, but I question whether or not this fits the idea of heritage. It's too late for a big change now, but I would have imagined the human heritage set to be sort of like, I guess, a military dress uniform, kind of more form than function. And maybe the orc heritage set could have embraced everyday life outside of wartime activities, so, a look that's closer to Duratan from Warlords of Draenor. Now, I'm still excited to see what these variations are going to look like. After all, throughout the Warcraft franchise, humans have differentiated themselves by kingdom, and orcs by their different clans. And I do hope that it's more than just colors, but designs to celebrate the different kingdoms and clans. Warcraft as a whole, it began with humans and orcs, and in my opinion, if any race or any races deserve a bit more special treatment, it probably should be these two. And in a pleasant surprise, race class combos are expanding again. Goblins, Worgen, and Lightforged Draenei will be able to access monks as a class. Now, we've been waiting forever for this, and Lightforged Draenei, it's your time to rise up! No, really, ever since Mists, players have been asking for Worgen and Goblins to get some love, and they've been getting passed until now, so this is overall great news. With this, the majority of classes, 7 out of the 13, will be playable by any race. There's still a long way to go until every race can become every class, and as much as players do want to get to that point, there's a process like figuring out what Nightborn Shaman totems are going to look like, or will a Mechanome Druid transform into a literal tank in their Guardian spec, and will a Void Elf Paladin explode upon character creation. For now though, I want to speculate on which class is probably next in line to open up, and I think it's going to be between the Shaman and the Warlock classes. Now, Dragonflight has a very heavy elemental theme to it, so I can imagine a kind of lore tie-in that would open up the Shaman class for everyone. Meanwhile, Warlocks don't have race-specific demons, so there's a bit less work involved, although there are some direct conflicts with, say, the Mag'har Orcs or the Lifeforged Draenei. So it's kind of a toss-up. It could be one, the other, maybe both at once, maybe. I want to hear what you think, and that's the show. On the raid side of things, my team smashed. We downed Dathia as well as Krog Grim Totem on Heroic in about like 10 or so pulls. I think the bump in damage thanks to completing more tier sets and getting another spark made a pretty significant difference. The other that I think made a difference this week, Piss. Those yellow circles on the ground are friendly. You get haste.
Oh, should have said before.
They're friendly?
Yes.
Who makes them?
Me.
Soul.
Hmm.
His bucket's full of sand.
Soul's
Where'd
peeing on the
everybody
ground.
go? What happened?
It's Papi. It's a lot of piss.
Does the piss
A
hurt
lot
you
of
over
pain.
time? Because I was taking a lot of damage here for some reason.
Nah, the piss is friendly. The Sands of Temporal Perfection is a trinket that's new to this patch. It generates a large field of sand, or piss, near the user's location that they can stand in for roughly 10% haste and a movement speed buff. The field lasts for about 20 seconds and it has a low and pretty random proc rate. What's wild about this thing is that anyone can see this field and stand in it for the buff. So this trinket can easily influence or disrupt group behavior in a given encounter. It's kind of a raid buff, but in some cases it's a risk that may or may not be worth taking. I happen to be the only one using this trinket in our run, but imagine if it's distributed to like 2 or 3 people. It's probably not something that you want to replace your Grieve Torch or Icon for, but strategic use of this trinket means that the raid gets a really useful buff, as long as they don't get killed trying to stand in it. So let's wrap up by thanking the fantastic people over on Twitch for tuning in, so we can all keep each other company. The beloved patrons to keep the lights on, I am ever grateful, and to you, viewer, I appreciate that you made it to the end of this video and helped out the algorithm. Next week is going to be thick with content, I hope. I plan on some fun stuff like add-ons that I've found. I'm going to try and get a little bit more into the race-class combo ideas, and maybe cover some patch 1007 content. So be sure to stay tuned by subscribing to the channel, help out by liking the video, that costs you nothing, and tune in live for a chat or just to hang out. Have a great weekend, everyone, and until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.